What was your "did I fracking stutter" moment? Story 1. Mine was pretty recent. Was working a retail job, think crummy gas station with a red logo, and had about a year and a half in. Worked all kinds of overtime for them, came in early, would end up staying late, always with the usual guilt trip hogwash to get you to cover their butts. Approximately 6 months ago, I worked 45 days straight due to the camping of call-offs we had, and people being fired for calling off. My schedule had been changed from first shift to second shift, and I asked several times about going back to my original shift and was told every excuse under the sun. They were going to move me back as soon as they got someone hired and trained, and they would, but the girl that was working my original shift couldn't work until 11 p.m., even though that's what she was hired for, because she was afraid that her boyfriend would cheat on her if she was at work that late. Then, at the end of June, the GM took 2 weeks of vacation, and we had a woman call off 6 out of 8 days in a row. I had requested a Friday off as I had plans and I was scheduled off for that day, even telling them the day before, if she calls off, I can't cover it. Cue text message from the assistant manager asking me to come in, and I tell her that I can't, which then leads to another employee texting me about how I need to step up, I'm useless, people there hate me, etc. And after I came back to her, I texted the assistant manager asking to talk to her about getting this resolved since me and the girl were supposed to work our next shifts together, and was told that she doesn't take ultimatums kindly and I needed to drop it if I wanted to keep my job. Went into work the next day and proceeded to get my butt ripped about how I don't cover hours that need covered when people call off, that they're all tired of picking up my slack, and that when I ask for time off, I need to make sure that it's for a legitimate reason because I'm 30 years old and taking time off from work to watch a TV show is childish, and that I need to grow up. And she had talked to the other girl and said that the other girl just had a little temper tantrum and she's fine now, so I should just let it go. You guys, if you could have seen the look on her face when I told her that my time was my time to do with what I wanted, and it didn't matter if I sat and stared at a wall, and as a matter of fact, if you're picking up so much of my slack, you can pick up all of it because I'm quitting. And then I walked out on a day when we got 4 different delivery trucks in. Too long didn't read? Threw gasoline on that shrew and burnt that bridge up. Have no regrets except I should have done it sooner. Absolutely should have done it sooner, or should have kept looking for other work while you were doing this and not tell them. That is just really corporate gaslighting right there. Just having to be their personal go-to for everything. Sometimes I think the person, "Oh, you're my go-to person," means you're the person I know that I can abuse, and you'll just say, "Yes, sir." Story 2. This was a school team. I volunteered to work as a library monitor for our school library. Basically, you just help check in books and do some shelving. Fairly simple. The librarian, let's call her Ms. How, as in, how the frack did you mess up, asked me when I was available. I was a shy, anxious kid who doesn't really like talking to teachers, but I told her I could help Monday and Friday mornings. She said, "All right," and checked me off. I guess she mistakenly checked me off to help on Thursday mornings. I got volleyball practice, but I didn't see the paper. Thursday morning. I didn't show up because I didn't apply for that time. Ms. Howe saw me as she came out of the staff room to ask me why I wasn't here for library monitors. Me, startled. "Oh, I didn't apply for Thursdays. I have volleyball practice on those days." Ms. Howe, confused. "What? Didn't you say you were available on Thursdays?" Me in my head. Oh, heck, did I stutter. Me. "No, I don't recall." Ms. Howe. "Well, now you have to work Thursdays." "Since Fridays are full." I was shocked. "I told you already. I have v-ball practice." Ms. Howe, frustrated. "You either work on Thursdays or you quit." She didn't yell, she just said it in an infuriating tone. Me. "Guess I'll quit. I'm going to be late for class. Have a good day." Ms. Howe was startled at my response and kind of just stood there. She hated me for the rest of the year, which gave me anxiety on my grades. Well, Miss Howe, if you're reading this somehow, curse you and your hogwash. I will never understand teachers who need to go on a power trip against literal children. Do you think it's because these teachers are trying to just sort of whipping these kids into some kind of shape where they can be abused by job seeker employers? Sometimes it feels like that way, doesn't it? Story 3. Found out my supposed best friend who I was letting live on my couch was cheating on me with my girlfriend at the time who I lived with. I work in IT, so I work crazy long hours, but we had a massive power outage one day, and the boss said to just go home for the day, so I left 5 hours early. Caught both of them red-handed. Kicked them both out at once, which was ideal because I got a little 2 pigeons, 1 stone type of deal. They both apologized profusely and asked me, even though they made a mistake, why would I kick them out on the streets in an area where they can't afford to live? Silicon Valley. I laughed my butt off and said, "I guess that's something you two should have figured out during pillow talk, huh?" And slammed my front door as hard as I could in their faces. Needless to say, it wrecked me for a while because I loved that girl, but looking back on it, I think it's the only moment in my life where I'm proud to have stood up for my morals and values and not taken any guff or continued to let people walk all over me. And that stuff is priceless. Deity dang, dude. Props to you for being such a savage and overall bad-to-the-bone person. Hope everything worked out. Yeah, really. What's the phrase? Don't do the crime if you can't do the time? Yeah, you should have had some sort of contingency if you were going to plan on doing this stuff. And also, you should not be doing this stuff, especially to the guy that's giving you a place to live. Both of you. Story 4. Horrible situation. My mom was an alcoholic who was paying for all of her boyfriend's nursing home expenses and then paid all of his family's expenses like car payments, big purchases like appliances, or home remodel payments. My mom's addiction caused her health to plummet. She needs to be in nursing care. Her boyfriend passes away, and his family never contacts her unless it's to complain that they need money. I take over her finances and cut off all of their fracking sugar mama payments. If they had stayed in regular contact or regularly visited her, sure, I would have considered it. But no, they just wanted her to cover their payments. I cut off the entire family. My mother had a lot of money. One of the buttholes, boyfriend's sister, calls to tell me they're going to report me to Adult Protective Services to report me. Me? I say, go ahead. I have nothing to hide, and you guys are butt wipes. They were flabbergasted that I said, did I fracking stutter? They tried to report me, but Adult Protective Services just reached out to me to see if I needed help transitioning my mother to nursing care. Tool-sucking turds. Stopped talking to my mom after that. She passed away, never hearing from them again. I was the one holding her hand during her last few days of life. They didn't come to her funeral or the memorial her students held for her after that. Story 5. I worked for a nonprofit childcare for a decade, and the org was, probably still is, falling the frack apart. We failed a licensing inspection because nobody would allocate resources to fixing serious issues. Even though my site was running bare bones and making hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. During the inspection, the licensor noticed that the floor tiles were exceptionally old, and because of their dimensions, she suspected they contained asbestos. I knew at the time that some of the tiles were broken and pulled up from the floor, which would expose the children to particulate matter. I went to the regional director with a list of complaints and wrapped it up with a strong suggestion that we investigate the possibility that the staff and, more importantly, the children were being exposed to carcinogenic materials. They essentially responded with, "It's not in the licensing agreement, so we don't need to spend money on that." I checked the frack out after that conversation and reported everything I possibly could to the appropriate authorities. Story 6. We dropped our dog off at the groomer's for a usual trim. When I returned 3 hours later, the receptionist returned with a dog that, while adorable, was definitely not our dog. Not the same breed or even size. I chuckled and said this is definitely not my dog. To which the receptionist thought the appropriate reply was, "Yes, that's Miley. That was her name, but not the same dog." I retorted, "I think I know what my own dog looks like, miss." "Well, that's her. If you don't like the cut, you can discuss it with the groomer." That dismissive comment immediately made me lose my patience. "Hey, get out from behind that desk and take this dog. We will go back there together and I will show you which dog is mine. I'm not going to waste another breath arguing this with you. Let's go." I found our Miley. It was the dog that was excited instead of confused when she saw me. I got that grooming for free. Groomed so hard they changed the breed. This moment has a lot of Karen energy, but she was right. I mean, totally different dog, totally different size? Yeah, you'd be ticked, especially when the person is trying, "Oh, this is your dog." No, it's not. Frustrating. Very frustrating. Story 7. I was working at Wally World and a customer who was on his phone from the start of his transaction, "Don't do this," placed a big package of toilet paper on the belt. I told him it was $10 even. He was still on his phone but handed me a $10 bill. Gave him his receipt and he walked away. Right before he walked out, I noticed I didn't give him the change, and he tried to argue with me that I didn't tell him that it was $10 and he wanted a refund. I sent him to customer service because I couldn't give him a refund even if I wanted to, and he mumbled under his breath that I was a dumb shrew. I replied, "It's not my fault you were on your phone." He turned his head around and said, "What did you say?" I slammed my hands down on the countertop and I said loud and clear, "I said it's not my fault you were on your phone." He took a step back and left, and I went on my break. Worth it. After reading this and scrolling down, I got about halfway through another story before realizing the voice in my head was screaming the story instead of speaking it. Story 8. Worked in a gas station, and 2 guys walked in and kept looking where all the workers were. I kept an eye on them because they looked shady. Then I saw one of the guys put a pack of sausages in his pocket and then come by the till to buy a Red Bull. I made my coworker, also my sister, move so I could serve them, and when I scanned the Red Bull, I said in the most casual way I could, with my heart nearly ripping out of my chest, "I'm not a confrontational person. Do you want to pay for the sausages you put in your pocket, too?" And the look on his face was priceless. I had to repeat myself, and he just mumbles a, "Sorry," and paid for the sausages. After they left, my coworker lost it. Said how taken back she was because she thought I was being rude to the customer before she realized what happened. She ended up telling the manager about it, and I got a good old pat on the back and a sincere thanks. Doesn't sound like much, but I felt like a frackin' badass. Oh, you were. Story 9. I was babysitting an arrestee recently at the hospital who had a broken leg, so they wanted to do a video arraignment. Whatever, I don't care. I'm getting paid to watch YouTube. They asked for my email address to send me a link to use my phone for the video conference. Sorry, I don't have a work phone. Oh no, they say, use my personal phone for the video arraignment. Yeah, no, my personal phone is not being used in an arraignment. That leaves it open to discovery, in my opinion. No, it's fine, they say. Officers do it all the time. Cool. It's not happening. But the judge is waiting. I don't work for the judge. Not happening. This is probably my favorite I said no in this entire topic. They were too cheap to come up with a video arraignment solution themselves and pressure officers to do it to save money. Kudos to you for not backing down. Story 10. When I was a shift lead in a kitchen, we had this one high schooler who always had an attitude, and typically I would ignore it. But one day, she didn't want to prepare or clean dishes, and I gave her the choice, but she flat out said no to doing both. Since she had time to talk with her coworkers, I told her to do both. I usually don't make people do anything. I ask if they can, But this time I deliberately made her do both. They usually don't see me being direct like that, so it was effective. I almost stuttered too, but I will never let her know that. I hate telling people to do this or that unless I really know them well. I was given some good advice about managing people when I was first promoted. First, ask nicely, like you're asking for a favor. Then, tell them to do it. Third, punish them as you see necessary. It worked well for me over the years. Most employees get things done on being asked. Every now and then you have to be direct, but even good employees have off days. Story 11. I volunteer in the computer lab of a homeless shelter. People use the computers to look for jobs, housing, education, etc., although most of the time they're just on YouTube. We have enough computers that this isn't usually an issue. If they choose not to use their time productively, their time can be limited at the discretion of the monitor. So one guy is listening to music when another guy comes in needing to look for an apartment. Since all of the computers are full and this guy has been on the longest, it's his turn to get booted off. I tell him politely, "Your time is up. You can have a minute or two to finish what you're doing, but you'll have to get off." And he says, in a confrontational tone, "Are you a police officer?" So I say to him, "As long as we're in this room, you're dang right I'm a police officer." He said, "All right," and left without any trouble. I worked at a homeless shelter for a couple years, and any time I got asked if I was a cop or if I was going to try and arrest them, I'd say, "No, but I have them on speed dial." Story 12. When I found out the ex-husband's last affair, he had several. I told him to open his iPad and start looking for a place to stay as he was sure the frack wasn't going to be staying in the house. He sat there and just looked at me like I was joking. I said, "Your fingers aren't broken. Start tapping away and find a place. Either I can pack your bag for you, which will be done in 3 seconds, or you can pack it." I said, "You have 3 choices. The car, the gutter, or finding a friend." He then stood up and made his way to the bedroom to pack. Said he can stay with a friend. I said, "I don't care where you stay, but it won't be here." Moved in with the last affair the following day. Very classy of him. Butthole. I hope you're doing better now. Story 13. Okay, I do F1 in schools, and you need to have a team. As graphic designer, I'm in charge of color schemes, making logos, and branding. I had just finished the logo in all its glory. It had taken me weeks. I presented it to them, and then the team manager told me that we were going to change it completely. Keep in mind, the manager was getting updates on my work the entire time and could have told me earlier. We got to the topic of color schemes, and my team and I had decided on blue. We told my manager, and she told me she liked burgundy more. I turned to her and said, I actually did word for word, "Did I stutter?" The color scheme ended up being blue. Story 14. I'm a medical resident. I was working the newborn nursery and had a new mom ask us for help as the baby's father, who was abusive, actively using illicit substances, and had been absent the entire pregnancy, was trying to forcibly get involved now that the baby was born. When I mentioned consulting social work as part of the plan, he looked at me and said, "How about we don't talk to social work? I have enough drama in my life, and I don't want any more." So I looked right back at him and said, "The reason we're consulting social work is to ensure we don't have any more drama when the baby leaves the hospital." He backed off immediately. Story 15. Me. Sorry, I can't let you go back into the pit. If you need to get to the other side, go up to the 300 cross-section and go around. Customer. But I just need to cross, though. Me. Go to the 300 section and walk around. Customer. I can't cut through. I have a pit pass. Me. The pit is closed. You need to go to the 300 section and go around using that cross-section. I work as an usher at an open-air amphitheater, and I have this conversation with multiple customers at the end of every fracking show. Sounds like Budweiser stage. Story 16. Yeah, that would be the day I quit a 16 years job because they informed me the money earmarked for my recovery from work-related stress was for other people who might need it, and I would have to start paying out of pocket. After 10 minutes of chewing the HR rep out over the phone about how I was done, how horrible the place had become, how I never wanted to see or hear from anyone there again, I got, "So what time will you be back in the office?" All I could do was hang up the phone, Thank the therapist I could no longer afford and go home. I never set foot in the office again. It was frankly one of the best days of my life, but a definite did I stutter moment. Story 17. Checked into campus housing. When I gave them my last name, fairly uncommon, the girl said, "Do you mean..." Insert name that rhymes with mine. It's like, what the hell? Are you seriously suggesting I don't know my own name? This is always my experience. Person misspells my name? Me? Actually, it's spelled like this. Spells name. Person. No, I'm pretty sure there was an R in it. Story 18. Vehicle inspector here. Sir, your back right tail is broken. You need to get that fixed and come back. Well, I'm friends with the owner here, and you're telling me that my car has a problem? I already have. If you aren't prepared in the future, don't waste my time. My friend has a shop and does vehicle inspections. At least once a month he hears, "But some other shop gave me a sticker." And his response is always, "How nice for you. Take it to that shop then." Story 19. Went out for food with my other half to some small Chinese restaurant. It was us and maybe 2 other tables on a Friday night, and honestly, it was the best food we'd ever tasted. We were served by some old guy, and he just made us feel welcome. He just looked at me in disbelief. Tipping in the UK really isn't that big. Pressing the green enter button on that card machine was my best did I fracking stutter moment. The bill came, think it was around £40. Thought, what the hell, and doubled it as a tip. Story 20. When I finally kicked my ex out of my life, she tried to argue us back into being together as I drove her to the airport and even had the nerve to critique my arguing techniques as unconducive to resolving a fight. I cut her off and said, "What part of this are you not getting? We're way past that. This is not a fight I need to work through with you. I'm taking you to the airport, and I never want to see or hear from you again." Dude, I feel your pain. Went through almost the exact same stuff with my last ex. Story 21. My mom came to my place, and out of reflex, she called me a sloot, like she did when I was living with her as a teenager. I told her to get out. There was this amazing moment where she was completely disoriented by my reaction. It didn't compute, so I told her again, "It's time for you to go. Please leave." It was one of the most important moments of my life. I'm amazed you were nice enough to let her show up in the first place for treating you that badly. Good on you for immediately sending her out. Story 22. Teacher here. This one time, there was a kid that was really annoying. I lived by the principle, 3 strikes and you're out. When the time came, I calmly told him to leave. He didn't make any moves to leave, so I said, "That wasn't a question, by the way." He still hesitated way too long to take his belongings and go, so I dropped the "Did I stutter?" on him. He was gone quickly. I'm generally a young and quite loose teacher, so this always gets my whole class very, very silent when it happens. Love that. Story 23. Not me who said it, and it wasn't in a rude context, but I went on a date with a guy and tickets were cheap that night. As I was pulling out my wallet to pay for my ticket, he stopped me and said, "No, I got it." I asked him if he was sure, and he said, "Did I stutter?" What makes this so funny to this day was that he did have a stutter. So when he said that, it was smooth as heck. And now they're married. Story 24. I was a CSR for a popular pizza chain and was handed a phone with an angry customer on the other line. They were complaining about having a pizza messed up, and I asked what they ordered. Over the next few minutes, their story kept on changing. First it was the sauce, then the toppings, then a missing side. I called him out on it and told him to go scam some other restaurant. Needless to say, he only got 1 bomb in before I hung up on him. Story 25. When I quit my last job due to a promotion, I let my current boss know that I accepted the promotion and gave him 3 weeks' notice and that my last day was March 31st. He proceeded to tell me that we would discuss a time when he would allow me to leave, and I wasn't allowed to leave until he said so. I very firmly repeated myself that March 31st would be my last day, and it was not negotiable. He was the worst person I've ever worked with in my career. Story 26. Had a door-to-door salesman ring the doorbell. I was nice and opened the door and stepped outside onto the step. Dogs were going bananas. I let him tell me what he was selling, and then politely told him I wasn't interested. Went to open the screen door to go in, and he put his arm out to stop it from opening. I have resting shrew face normally, so I guess the look on my face was enough, but I was instantly livid with him. Story 27. My ex continued to text me like normal every day 2 weeks past the breakup she initiated. Eventually, I ended up telling her, "Look, you don't want to date, you don't want to be friends. I'm not going to keep making small talk to make you feel better." A week later, she still texted me to wish me a happy birthday. The breakup, according to her, was because I couldn't read the room well. Oh, man. Story 28. It was my date of birth for me. Other person on phone? Are you sure? Our records indicate another date. Me. I have my birth certificate in front of me. I'm pretty sure that's my birthday. Story 29. Caught my girlfriend cheating and kicked her out. Went out on the patio for a smoke. I've since quit. Woohoo! And she followed me out, asking me to at least give her a few from the pack. Hands over pack. Now I've quit 2 bad habits in the same day. Story 30. No thank you. I don't want to work Saturday. Are you doing anything on Saturday? No, I just don't want to work Saturday. You contracted me to work weekdays. Anyway, I got a complaint filed against me for not being a team player. Story 31. My ex lived with me when I found out that his friend who was doing pro bono work overseas was actually his fiancée. Me kicking him out was my "did I fracking stutter" moment. No, shrew. Get out of my house. Story 32. My friend bet me $20 that he could beat me in Mortal Kombat X, and I destroyed him. He said double or nothing, and I beat him again. When he got paid, I told him he owed me $40, and he said, "What?" Story 33. Every time I say I'm 26 when asked how's high school. So, how's high school?
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.